Life is too short to play small. You were designed for big things. Welcome to the Big Design Energy Podcast. I am your host, Melisa, and I am so happy to have you here with me. If you're curious about what it would look like for you to live a life truly extraordinary instead of settling for it could be better or it's not that bad, then join me as I share strategies, spiritual practices, and real-world examples to get you inspired and ready to make the life you dream of a reality. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I have a special guest, Melisa Keenan, with me here today. Keynote speaker, international USA Today best-selling author. She's the go-to intuitive intimacy expert for the top 1%, guys. Helping business owners have more confidence, connection, ease, and trust into their personal relationships through the mastery of intimacy and masculine and feminine energy. So obviously you guys know why I wanted to have her on the podcast. So more than just a 4-year coach or certified master of the Gibson Banning method, Melisa, true expert with healing broken and strained relationships, starting with her own. I read a little bit about her story, and yes, it sounds very accurate, which she'll share more with you. So when she's not in the middle of everyone's private lives, you'll find her dancing, singing, working, and praying at her hobby ranch in northern Nevada, where she lives with her husband, also named CJ, and their 4 kids. Hi, Melisa.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, so happy to have you here. So yeah, you got a lot going on just by reading that. You're very accomplished, have all of the things.
Thank you.
Would you mind giving us a little about me, kind of what led you here to this moment?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many versions of this story that I could tell. It's always a little like I pause and I kind of am like, what part of this story needs to come forward today? I grew up in a broken childhood for sure. But I think when you grow up in a broken childhood, you don't know necessarily until other people tell you. And so it wasn't until I was in high school and I would get reactions from my friends when I would tell them about some of the more personal things that I had gone through that I was like, oh, this is not normal. This is not what everyone else experienced. And it also wasn't right, like it also wasn't right and it wasn't fair. And anyway, I struggled quite a lot all through adolescence. And when I started college, I had just joined a new church, and I had, you start out fresh, right? You're just out of the home, and I was really in a place of wanting to define who I was and have that be different than the patterns I had seen play out before me. And so even though I had massive trust issues, I was inspired by the families that I saw in my faith, and I decided to let my heart be open to love and starting a family. And I met this amazing man. He had just come back from a mission where he served for 2 years in Bolivia. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's amazing. And, and we got married. I was 20, he was 21, had our first child just a year later. And when you have kids that young, and we were in college too, it wasn't that we were shirking our, duty to go to college and all of that. We were just like, we're going to do it all and have it all. And it was intense. You're in college, you've got a young child, you're trying to know what it even means to be married and have a family and be a mother and all the things. And it really hit the fan for me. And I spent the next several years really kind of very controlling and very in survival mode, just afraid that I wasn't doing it right. And I knew that I wasn't really happy and I couldn't figure out why. I started doing some therapy and things because people were like, well, clearly, if you had that kind of childhood, but nothing seemed to really bring me the peace that I was seeking. And I also knew I wasn't very happy in my marriage. So, about 5 years into marriage, my husband let me know that he had had some struggles of his own, a secret addiction that I didn't know about the entire time we were married, and that he, just had all this stuff going on that he would never have allowed me to see. And it was so hard. It ultimately led to us separating after the birth of our third child, in about 6 years at this point into marriage, separating for 6 months. And that was the point where I finally stopped trying to perfect my way through life and micromanage and control my way through life, and really just found this place of surrender. It was just a low of all lows for me, and at a very young age, to have so much responsibility on my shoulders with my children and everything, but also have had so much life experience already at this point, and just pain and tragedy. And it was the biggest blessing ever. Like, I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, because it was just such a massive hidden point. It was the place where I really started to take my own healing super seriously, and really was willing to pursue my own happiness no matter what anyone else around me was doing or saying. And then I continued to work also on like who I was in my marriage, and who I was being in my community, and who I was being as a mother. And so my husband and I actually were able to rebuild the foundation of our marriage. And we often would say it would have been easier to just like start over with someone new in many regards. It was so weird because it's a new marriage, but with the same person. So that meant you had to go through all the hurts and all the ways that we had like damaged each other when we were younger and more wounded and showing up broken. But we did. And so here we are now. I'm an intimacy coach. I never thought that that would be the case. And it really affected our relationship with our finances as well. So now we sit in this place where he has done a ton of inner work. I've done a ton of inner work. We're both running successful businesses, and he's got a successful career as well. And we have 4 kids. And it really clicked for me at one point, like, people need to know that this kind of happiness exists, and that this kind of connection is possible, even though it's not easy. Like, our society is built in such a way that it is the opposite of conducive for true human connection and true intimacy and even vulnerability. And yet when we do the work to get to those places, it is so rewarding. It's like heaven on earth. So that's what has brought me to this point.
Yeah, I love all of that. I love how you mentioned, what was it? Just controlling, trying to be so controlling of everything, and then the perfectionism, and then finally getting to a place where you just surrender and just let that go. I thought very, very beautiful.
It was so hard. I can remember one time, meeting with one of our ecclesiastical leaders, and I was the one that brought it up. Like, even the way he cuts onions drives me crazy. I said this right to the ecclesiastical leader, and then I was like, and I know that I shouldn't care, or like I know that like I shouldn't have to say stuff to him about all the things, but I just keep doing it. And it was so unhelpful. I mean, the sweet man was trying to be helpful, but he was just like, you just got to let those things go. And I had no idea. And now I know, like, he was asking me to jump from living my life in full masculine energy because of the survival mode that I had created as a result of all the hard things I had been through, to just jumping over to trusting and being open and carefree and happy and receiving my husband actually and trusting him and whatever. It was like, you don't understand. By asking me to not be controlling over these stupid onions, you're asking me to like jump across the Grand Canyon, and I don't have a bridge. I don't know how to do that. So it took, I mean, I remember him saying that. It was probably not another 8 years before I finally started to go, oh, I know how to unlock these parts of myself. And also, rather than feeling like it was some sort of like thing that I was doing wrong, it felt like I was setting myself free. And so I'm so grateful for the journey, but man.
Yeah. Yeah, you've had a journey for sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing being an intimacy coach as well. So are you still a part of the Church of the Latter-day Saints? Was that what I read correct? Yeah. Okay. So how do you balance your life with the church and with this profession? How is this received at the church?
I love that question because people typically know Mormons to be very conservative, and I am
Yeah.
very conservative actually. So the work that I do definitely does involve sex, but I don't lead necessarily with sex. So a lot of my marketing and things like that are not about sex. And that works really well for the kinds of people that I work with, because typically the kinds of people I work with would never read somebody's post if they were posting about sex all the time. It's just too uncomfortable. It's like not in alignment. And for me, the sex is more sex in my opinion is more a symptom of the quality of the relationship. So we work on a lot of parts and pieces, and it affects the sex. And certainly I talk to my clients, like behind closed doors, I talk to my clients about anything, whatever they want to bring up, we talk about it. But it really is a symptom of the quality of the relationship. And so it's okay. And I would also say, if I'm being totally honest, I have had people like report me on things that I post about and etc. I also make people really uncomfortable. I don't know if it's a church thing necessarily, but family and acquaintances and the community and stuff, because I am so vulnerable about what it is that we've been through. Sharing about the fact that my husband had an addiction is something that he and I have talked at length about. Like, for him, he's like, if this story can help people, share. And he will share too if he feels so inspired. But there's a lot of people in the world who are like, you should never share. You should never. And it's like, we are all human. And so the reason that people get uncomfortable is because we're triggering the parts that they didn't want to look at.
Yeah. Like everyone's having sex, everyone's addicted to something at one point or another in their life. Like this isn't something really that crazy or outside the box.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that keeping it behind closed doors. Yeah, I want to ask you about, you said you make, or your ideal client would be uncomfortable following or seeing like a million posts about sex. Is a part of your journey making them more comfortable seeing that? Or is that just, or does that evolve into that? Or is that just how it is? I'm just simply curious.
It's an interesting question. I wouldn't say that's necessarily my goal, but definitely making them more comfortable with their own sensuality and sexuality is a huge goal. Because because so often people can feel so shut down and closed down about their own body and their desires and all of that, that it's like, even in their partnership, even in their own bedroom, it's like they can't really speak about what they want, or they don't feel like they have the right to ask for what they want, or they're so disconnected from their body they don't even know what they want. And so, helping people reconnect to that, and I find that's across the board. Like, you don't have to have come from a really conservative background necessarily to be disconnected from your body, or disconnected from, that aspect of your life. So, more comfortable with their own sexuality, definitely. But I think everyone expresses that then differently. Like, some people feel more comfortable with being very open and speaking about that, and for some people that's not the case, but they can still like experience a fullness of that with their partner, and that's great. Like, I'm like, however, whatever
Yeah.
is fulfilling for you.
Yeah, I was just curious, like if there was like a, oh, okay, like I just I didn't grow up Mormon, but Christian, and I know just religion as a whole, there's a lot of conditioning around sexuality, sexual expression, especially for women. And I definitely went on either edge of the spectrum with what I've shared, what I've done, how I felt. And so it's just been a journey. I was curious.
Beautiful. And I will say, that, like, I really have deep faith, and a huge drive for why I do what I do comes from the beliefs that I have, cultivated and become to understand through the church. Because there are so many beautiful teachings on the family and on marriage, and I think sometimes it gets a little lost in translation when it comes to the actual culture of the church. Like, there's nothing in the church that says that you shouldn't enjoy sex, or, or whatever, or even like, strict lines about how you can express your sexuality, especially with your own, husband, or your own partner. But because it's not super clear in black and white, and so many other aspects of our faith are super clear in black and white, it can make it so that it's like, well, I'd rather play on the safe side and then just completely shut everything down.
Yeah.
So really why I do what I do is super rooted in the fact that I actually believe families are eternal. I believe that we continue our family on through the eternities. We take our family with us when we die. Like, those connections, those bonds are always there. Like, that's very deeply rooted for me. And that ultimately, like, our goal and our purpose of this mortal journey is so that we can learn to become like our heavenly parents and become heavenly parents. Like, a lot of people don't know that about our faith because it's kind of a deeper doctrine that we don't really talk about, but that actually is what fuels it. So it's definitely been a little conflicting to have some church people be like, how can you talk about those things when it's like, I am literally a stand for what we believe.
Yeah. You're like, I'm not putting you down. I'm just saying you should reconnect with yourself, listen to what your body wants, love yourself, and love other people. Where is this wrong? What's going on here? Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. I think of so many times, I've definitely got so many great experiences, so many lessons. There's so many lessons to be learned from religious teachings. But yeah, it's the culture and the politicizing of the religion that gets in the way of,
Yeah.
that gets divisive to where we can't just all be happy and nice to each other. We gotta be mean. And I want to comment on what you said, how you don't have to have like a horrible childhood or completely be in a repressed or religious situation or whatever to feel disconnected from your body. And I totally agree. I think it's a lot of numbing and escaping, whether now more than ever. I mean, social media is an escape, Netflix, just replacing it with substances or whatever you want to, like, distract yourself from the real root of the problem. Yeah, it could happen to anyone. It doesn't have to be anything specific.
Yep, definitely. Are and I think too, where I see this show up the most, and probably where people don't know that this is related, is when it comes to emotions. So most of us don't even realize that we're also feeling our emotions in our body. So a lot of the work that I'll do with my clients, especially initially, is like refamiliarizing yourself with the fact that you're feeling that sadness also in your body. There are places in your body, and what does that feel like? And actually like leaning into those sensations, because as we reawaken and re-enliven those sensations, that has a trickle effect that affects every aspect of our lives. Our ability to listen to our intuition. Like, how else are you supposed to know what your intuition is saying? Or listen to the voice of God. The voice of God speaks to you through what you sense. So being connected to your senses, or your sensuality, is literally connected to everything. And then it also helps you to connect to what you really desire. Our desires point us to our most fulfilled lives. So being able to listen to the sensations that come up in your body and the emotions that come up in your body unlocks your desires. And then it also unlocks what you deeply value. It helps you identify, like, oh, wait a minute, like this is missing for me in this situation. That's why I'm feeling all of this. So you can then go and create your best life. So so when we and we've all been conditioned to shut down our emotions, because we live in a masculine energy heralded society where emotions are unknown and spontaneous and chaotic, and so we just don't do that. There's no space for that. There's only space for structure and accomplishment and achievement and clear systems and all of that, having everything in place. So in that structure and system, we've all taught ourselves how to kind of push our emotions to the side, compartmentalize parts of ourselves. And so, but what we don't know is then that also is shutting down our senses towards our sex drive, and our senses towards our intuition, or those spidey senses that let you know, like, oh, something is not right in this situation, or let you know, like, this is the opportunity, go for it, or whatever. Like, it shuts down all of that. Our sensuality is really a much bigger, all encompassing conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I know it's so insane because, like you said, emotions so chaotic, so unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. And like with women, our periods each month, then it's just, oh, you're so emotional. Oh, you're crazy. You're this, you're that. We get put into this box. And so then we even further are like, okay, like sometimes I cry and my husband's like, oh, you're crying because of me. And I'm like, I mean, this is like the last little domino that's falling over, but like this isn't about you. But then I'm like, I don't want to sound like it's always about me, but I'm like, this is just my body processing things that have been built up, and I'm crying, and that's okay. And it's okay to feel emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes a lot of communication in a marriage to be able to get to a place where everyone feels 100% safe to express their emotions 100% of the time. And that doesn't look like we have that in our partnership, and it's amazing, and it's taken time to get it to that place. It doesn't mean that, like, when I'm angry, I have permission to just fly off the handle and do damage to people or say things that are mean. So it's also about like learning how to express those feelings in such a way that people don't immediately assume that it's their fault. But at the same time, no one's ever perfect. So even in a relationship like ours, where we've built such a safety, we will still trigger each other. And there will still be times where we'll have to say, I'm sorry, I can't support you in this right now because I have too much of my own stuff going on. And we both hate that, man. We both we're always like, man, I wish we could just eliminate that. But I prefer that so much more. Like, I love that my husband even feels safe enough with me to say that, because it's vulnerable for a man to admit that he can't stay in the room and help help you process whatever it is and be
Yeah.
a strong one.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. In your About Me, you had a part where you said that you had like kept the pink and the glitter and the dresses, but then everything else was masculine
Mhm.
versus feminine. And that line stuck out to me a lot because I'm like, okay, I feel like that's what I was doing for a lot of my life, just being cute and doing this, but it was so forced. So get this, then once I get here, then I got to get this. Then I got to keep climbing and then I got to do this. And then once I feel this, I'll be happy. But like everyone always says, if you're starting a new business, I want to make 5 grand a month. Then you want to do 10, then 50, then 100, then 300, then a million. Like there's always a next level. So you never get this fulfillment or that satisfaction, at least when you're coming at it from an unbalanced angle. What would you say you see your clients struggle with the most when it comes to this disruption of masculine and feminine energy?
Yeah, I love that. So, first, I would say that that's a big misunderstanding that people have about masculine and feminine energy. Um, when true masculine feminine energy refers to yin and yang energy, and it doesn't have anything to do with gender. So, things like pink and glitter and nails, or vacuuming, cooking, and being the nurturer, mother, whatever, or whatever it is, that those are called what I call cultural feminine. So our cultural feminine things, it's actually different for everyone, right? Like based on the country you were raised in, the religion you were raised with, the people that were around you, the way that your mother thought, the way that the women in your family thought, the way the men in your family thought. That's what we call cultural feminine, and it's very different from feminine energy. So then the struggles that you described, those are all in the realm of masculine energy. So the opposite of those is not more pink and glitter or
Yeah.
nails or something stupid,
Yeah.
right? I love
You gotta take a
girls.
lot of bubble baths and then you'll
Right?
be
Oh my God.
finally so feminine.
I really thought when I first started on this journey, I thought that's what people were trying to tell me. And I was like, I'll just punch you all in the throat. Like I was just like, I cannot, like I hated it. Um, I hated it because then it also leads to like, and therefore your body must be perfect. And, you must put your pursuits of beauty above all other things. Like that's what we think means feminine.
Yeah.
It's,
I love that distinction between cultural and then the actual energetics.
right?
Yeah.
It's so damaging. A lot of the cultural feminine stuff is damaging. So when I'm working with a client, I'll ask them, we'll break down like, what have you believed it means to be a good woman? And I say good woman. I'm like air quotes around good woman because even that phrase just like kind of gives me the shivers. I don't like it. Because what does that even mean? Just being a woman makes you a good woman.
Yeah.
Anyway, what is that meant to you? What did you see in your ancestry? What did you see, like what was some of that conditioning? And then how is that affecting you now? Most of us would say in our feminist day and age, we would say, oh, none of that affects me now. But all of us are still affected by this. And it just shows up in the funniest things, ways that we just deny ourselves what we want and things like that, because we think that's what women are supposed to do. And it's different for everyone. It's like an arbitrary, constantly moving standard. So we'll break that down so that then she can just ask her own intuition. She can actually use her real feminine energy, which is our intuition, to go, what of these things actually feels like it's in alignment for me personally, who I want to be, how I want to be in the world, who I actually am. So, so then to answer your question where you talked about what do I see clients struggling with when they're really in masculine energy? Is that kind of what your question was?
Yeah. If they're just not, maybe if they're more one extreme versus the other, either way, but generally I would assume we're conditioned to be in masculine.
We are primarily we are conditioned more to be in masculine, and I think that that stems just simply from the fact that like so many of us have been raised in this feminist day and age, and we're so like, I will not be oppressed and I will not be caged the way that my mothers were and that sort of thing. So then we come at it so hard and strong, and we end up doing it in this whole really toxic masculine energy way, doing our whole lives in that way. So typically that is the pattern, and that's also why I work primarily with business professionals, because I see these same patterns that show up over and over. When you become a business owner, those pressures just exacerbate of, you know, accomplishment proving, like you talked about, you know, climbing the ladder, and that the benchmark never it's just always shifting and moving, and your accomplishments are never enough. um and that is exactly what I see in the clients that come to me. And maybe, for example, some of the ways this might play out is if she's do you want to hear in relationships, how it shows up in
Yes,
relationships?
let's do relationships. Yeah.
If she's single, it shows up like she's super successful as a CEO, but she's single and she really would love to share her life with a partner. And it's not as rewarding. She knows it's not as rewarding to like have these different accomplishments and not have a connected, committed relationship by her side. But she looks at the dating world and it's like a checklist, and it's almost like a job interview. And she's got these like criteria, and she's really just like, okay, do you fit the criteria? Like, it has lost all the flavor and spice and fun of dating because it's serious, and it takes too much time, and her life is so serious, and everything is about her like progress and, you know, the momentum in her business, that it feels like a waste of time. Dating feels like a waste of time instead of feeling like this fun playground where she gets to go and explore and attract her soulmate partner, right? If she's married already, this can show up in things like, say she's young married, she's resentful often of all that she has to do. This is a whole new set of what it means to be a quote unquote good woman. Is I have to make all the money and run the household and keep the house clean, and I'm in charge of the kids' schedule, and I'm in charge of every family vacation and all that. Oh man, it is a killer for sex drive. And no one talks about this. People talk about sexual compatibility as if it's something that you're supposed to discover if you have it before you start your relationship. Sexual compatibility ebbs and flows and changes through a relationship. So whatever circumstances you find yourself in are going to affect your sexual compatibility. I think sexual compatibility before, you know, to identify if that means you're a good life partner is a total myth.
Yeah.
You create it, and your life circumstances will change that, you know. So anyway, so that can be often kind of a set of things that she's experiencing. And another typical pattern that I see is she'll come to me because this isn't her first marriage. She's married, but it's her maybe second or third or even fourth marriage. And she really wants this to be the one that sticks. But the way that she's done her life and the ways that she's been treated in the past, the traumas that she's experienced, has her in a place where it's just very, very hard to trust. One of the biggest things about feminine energy is our feminine, we are smart. We will just hide it away because it's so precious to us. Like our play, our creativity, our vision, all of those things are so sacred to us that unconsciously we'll just hide them away if we don't feel like we're safe. But what we don't realize is that a lot of that safety is within our ability to create for ourselves. It is definitely dependent on our environment. You can't be in a super unsafe, toxic environment and think you're going to just create your own safety.
Yeah.
But most of us are in pretty safe environments, but we walk around feeling so unsafe all the time. So that's another thing that shows up. You know, she's like, I'm married to a really good guy, but I'm not super open to having sex with him. I want to be, but I'm just not. And I'm also not super open to like his leadership and things like this, and I'm exhausted. I want to be open to his leadership. I can't get past myself. So that's another pattern that I'll see that shows up.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is a lot of control, a lot of physical, actual like physical labor, physical work, maintaining the household or going to your job, and then the mental load of, okay, so I did this today, and then next week this is going to do this, and I'm going to add this to the shopping list, and then the kids need to go here, and the kids need to do that. And so I'm in charge of, like you said, I'm bringing home money, I'm cleaning my house, head of the household, and making sure all the bills get paid. I'm in charge of the kids, all the vacations. And then he just wants to walk up in here, put his feet up on the coffee table, and say he's the leader and say he wears the pants. So how am I supposed to do all of this? And I'm supposed to do it because if I don't, then I'm not a good woman.
Yeah.
And it's all of those things adding together that just, yeah, like you said, the resentment, the control, the disconnect. That's not there.
And many times in that situation, like if you're listening and you're thinking, oh, like I relate with that. A lot of times it's like, yeah, but I'm this way because he's shown me that he isn't the leader, or he's shown me that he won't do the things he says he's going to do, this kind of thing. And I have a lot of compassion for our men as well as our women. There are bigger societal things at play for our men that have them falling into these more yin um, roles in marriage. And it's not our ideal. I don't care how alpha of a woman you are, you want to know that your husband can protect you. Like you just do. You want to know that he's going to be a strength for you. You want to know that he has a backbone and that he can lead in situations in the family. And so but what I have found is that men will default to this place because they're raised by really strong mothers who did everything for them, and they are afraid of looking like one of the bad guys. So there have been a lot of bad done by men towards women. That's like a universal thing that we know is true. But our men who really have good intentions seem to spend most of their lives like a giant apology for all the wrongs that other men have done. And it sucks. It's not fair. It's similar to the way that even if I haven't experienced sexual trauma, I pretty much carry myself as if I have, because I grew up watching, hearing about somebody getting raped every night on my TV on the news. Some woman, and so I go around distrusting men. It just is so sad, that reality that we face. And so it's up to us. Women often will say, why does it have to be up to me to change when he's the one that needs to step up, and he's the one that needs to, just do XYZ. If he would just do these things, I would be happy. But the reality is he doesn't feel safe to be a leader. He is afraid that you're going to push back, or that it's going to come across as being one of the bad guys. So then sometimes I work with couples. I start usually working with just the man or just the woman. But once I work with somebody for a period of time, if they're in a partnership, then sometimes my husband and I will work together with the couple, or just all work with the couple. And I hear this dynamic playing out for men and women all the time, where they both feel stuck, and she really wants greater permission to relax and pick up her feet and be more in flow and all of that, and he actually really wants to be more the leader and this kind of thing. But men will say to me, and this is like a vulnerable, they don't just come out and say this. It's like when you have them and they feel very safe, and you have them behind closed doors, and it's like, they're like, I don't know how to just be a masculine man in a safe way. Like, all I know is either being the nice guy or being the total jerk. and I don't know what the middle one looks like. And this is a travesty that has happened as a result of our society, that, we have tore down the true pure masculine. So sometimes women do get to be the ones to step up into their feminine to inspire that masculine in their partner.
Yeah. I love that. That's one of the things one of the many things I'm working on is just, yeah, having more compassion for men, because I grew up with my mom and my grandmother. My great grandfather was a very horrible person and abusive in every sense of the word within the family. And so it was so far removed. So that was, I guess, my mother's grandfather, but she hadn't seen them. I don't even know if she ever met him. And here I am, I'm still being told as a kid, don't trust any man, but your dad's okay. But don't trust men. Men are, I don't know. I don't know. Don't do it. And I'm like, well, what about dad? Okay, well, dad's good, but everyone else is bad. So I recently just had a conversation with my mother about this, just saying, like, the way you pose this then made me shift my viewpoint to where you could have been like, we experienced a lot of trauma, a lot of negativity. We had a lot of bad people in our lives. That doesn't mean everyone's bad, but you just got to be careful. Like, I don't like to trust anyone just right off the bat. People have to earn my trust. I'm like, even if you just say, have someone earn your trust versus all men are bad, though that's a completely different statement, that where you could still get the same message across. And with all the feminine and girl power and the aggression, leadership, boldness, energy, yeah, it's definitely a place where we all have to come to, because I'm like, I want to create a space to empower women. But if we have all these empowered women and the men aren't, then what is that going to look like? That's not really going to be any better. We need everyone to be in a better space. I
Yeah.
mean, you never want your husband or your brother or your father to feel like a piece of shit for acting like who they want to be. And maybe sometimes it's a little more nice, and maybe sometimes it's a little more sarcastic and, in the middle. But yeah, that's interesting to hear. What would, I know it's very specific, but like, what would, like, maybe a little summary of in the middle between nice guy and jerk you think look like?
What's
Yeah.
so beautiful, so this is why intimacy is my favorite thing. I define intimacy as into me see. And so there's this opportunity where once we kind of deconstruct all this conditioning, we get to just go to ourselves and look within and show up in the way that feels the most in integrity for us. And that's the case for men and for women. My favorite example of this goes a little fringe, but what inspires me most of all is pondering the idea that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married. And the more and more I learn about Mary Magdalene, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, the way that she lived and the way that she was this beautiful, like, if she could have been divine feminine embodied, then she was, right? And Jesus was divine masculine embodied. But we know more details about Jesus's life, obviously, because we have so many more scriptures about how he was and how he lived. But he lived with a balance and flow of masculine and feminine energy. And women are intended to live with that balance and flow of masculine and feminine energy too. So that ultimately, when you come together in a partnership, it's a beautiful dance of your masculine and feminine energies. It's just beautiful. And I definitely subscribe to the idea that I have slightly more feminine energy because I'm a woman, and my husband counterpart has slightly more masculine energy because he's a man. But and then that works really well for us, so that there's that polarity within the partnership. But how beautiful to look at even just Jesus's life, where he would some of his masculine energy characteristics. He was a great leader. He would walk past people and just say, "Come follow me," and then keep walking. He would, he could lead in large groups and things like this, right? He created structure and foundation for the church to be built on, all that. Feminine energy characteristics that Christ had was like crying over his friend Lazarus' death and getting down on the ground with the woman caught in adultery and like just being with her instead of judging her or talking about what needs to happen with her. He just was with her. Even the way that he would heal people, often just through like transfer of energy. That's all super feminine energy stuff. And so the idea to me that Jesus and Mary could have been like the most holy union on the planet, I just get so excited. And I love learning more and more about Mary Magdalene, because I think traditional Christianity sometimes is lacking in what's the model for women, because Jesus was great, but he was a man.
Yeah.
So anyway, that I think, Jesus is a great example. And at the same time, when my husband and I were going through our recovery journey, oh man, in the beginning, I was very hard on him still. It took time for me to like let those walls down. And I had a friend say to me, "Well, if you're waiting for him to be Jesus, you can just forget about it, because Jesus already lived and died, Melissa."
Oh,
So, and that's real too. We often really hold our men to such a high standard and expectations, and they hold themselves to that place too, which is often why they'll turn to addictions and things, because it's like, how can I possibly live up to all these expectations? I'll just do my best and try not to show any weaknesses.
yeah. How do I escape all the drama, all the stress of work without burdening my wife, my family with these feelings of stress?
Yeah.
I'll just go to the bar every night or do this, just be locked away in my little workshop doing whatever. Or yeah, I love that. I just listened to a podcast. It's called Conversations with My Higher Self. It's this woman, she channels her higher self, and essentially it's her higher self speaking. And this one, it was about Jesus and Mary Magdalene. She's like, yeah, I mean, you guys know they were married. So, I'm not saying it's true, but I think, yeah, you're definitely onto something. But she definitely mentioned her perspective. I won't go super deep into it, but essentially, Jesus was a more established being from another planet, another place, who came to Earth to share this knowledge, actually a collective of souls, not just an individual soul. But he understood that the planet and the structure and the culture of this place was highly masculine. So he chose to come as a male to get the most, bang for your buck, the most work done. But he worked extensively with the divine feminine, and like you mentioned, with the healing energies. Like, he had so much of this, but so often it's overlooked or maybe just not highlighted. They're like, he did all of these things and it's this, and we're not going to say exactly what it's about. One of the things that really stuck out to me was she shared that, nothing is coincidence, nothing happens by chance. How he died on the cross was very symbolic, because normally when we think of chakras, we think of like the 7 major ones running down vertically. But she mentioned another line of 6 going across. And so her point of sharing this was that the way he died was in perfect balance of feminine and masculine energies display. So that's something you can deep dive into if you feel like that's interesting to you. Because I've been deep diving into that. Yeah, I find it so fascinating. It's one of those things where she's just like, nothing happens by coincidence. Everything's like designed and everything like has a meaning and a purpose. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course it does. And it's like, no coincidence, it was a shape of a cross. And I'm like, yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. I've just never really thought of the fashion in which his life ended held so much meaning just in the cross, besides the cross representing Jesus versus it actually representing something way beyond.
Yeah. Wow. Super cool. I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, stretch out your arms now. Imagine these energies. He's like, I want to go to bed. I'm like, come on, let's align our chakras before bed. You said this is hurting you. Oh, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Okay, great. Well, is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up at all?
Oh, I think this has been such a fun and just flowy conversation. I guess, if you find yourself wanting to explore more of your feminine energy, you can come and find me on my website, www.melisakeenan.com, and you can read the about me
Yeah.
that we referred to so many times. And I've got a free intimacy guide there and some other things. And I'd love to talk with you, of course. So, and I also have a lot of free resources on my Facebook group, which is called Women Manifesting Intimacy. It's just a free space for female business owners who also want to deepen their feminine energy.
Yes, I love it. I'll have all of that included down below. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. What a lovely, lovely energy that you have.
Thank you. Thank you for choosing to spend your time here with me today. If this episode and the message I shared resonated with you and you would like to support the podcast, please share on your social media, share with your friends and family, rate, review, and subscribe. And remember, you have the power already within you to create the life you desire. Until next episode.